Hello, good morning. It's coming up to 7:45 on Monday, the 15th of August, and welcome to my second YouTube film within a week. Bit like Bus is my YouTube channel at the moment, nothing for ages and two come along at once. I'm out today on a 200-kilometre ride. It's not an official DIY Audax, but I'm actually treating it as though it is. I don't bother entering them officially anymore, I just ride them for fun, and I've rediscovered the actual passion and love I had for Audaxes originally, or back in my 20s. It's just a touring event and a reliability ride rather than this challenge and it's got to be epic. So that's the reason I don't enter them as officially anymore. As I've said recently, my plans now are just to do a 200, 300, 400 and 600 every year as long as I can, and that'll be at 4 official Audaxes a year. Today I'm filming it because I think the actual route itself really warrants sharing it. I've always liked to give my rides a title, it just gives it that bit of extra dimension. So today's ride title is Burrow Mump, Tower, 2 aqueducts and 2 tunnels, so you may get the drift. I think there's quite a lot of interest, and as I said, it's returned to its original idea for me of being a tourist event. More about the points of interest en route as I pass them, the ideal place to do it. I'm just stopped on the edge of Porton. This is the old Somerset coalfield, and there's one of the remaining spoil heaps there from the old mining days, so this would have been an old pit here. And you'll quite often see scrambling motorbikes going up there and then coming down, and being a motorcyclist myself, the thought of that absolutely terrifies me, so thumbs up for the people who've got the guts to do that. Anyway, I'm going to press on this way, head over the Mendips, drop down to Wales. As I come into Glastonbury, I'll show you some views of the tour, and that's the first of today's points of interest. Now just coming into the city of Wales, what an amazing aspect that is, Wales Cathedral. To avoid going through the town centre, I'm going to bear off to the left and then cut across the Somerset levels to the outskirts of Glastonbury. Kind of point of interest here, one of these gardens up here on the right hand side always used to have like a life-size toy soldier, quite colourfully painted. And it used to really spook me, freak me out, because it reminded me of an old 1960s black and white Doctor Who episode, which really scared me as a kid. And that involved like life-size toy soldiers. And it just used to also always trigger that memory actually. So it's gone. I sort of miss it, but I don't miss it, if that makes sense. Just a short stretch on that Wales to Shepton Mallet Road. As you can see, it's not very busy. Then I turn left here. Longleat, it's got this really unusual pond and fountain, and there's some water coming off the Mendips there. It's a really nice place to get off that main road. Now I'll be heading over the Somerset levels towards Glastonbury. Just crossing over a little ridge line of hills from Longleat to Longleat, then down on the levels, heading towards Glastonbury Tour there. Now on this very long straight road, Drove Road, going across the outskirts of Glastonbury, brings you out on the A39, although there's a little cycle path alongside the road which avoids the road itself. But this just goes on forever and ever. You seem to be making no progress. Even when you start spotting the traffic, zoom in from right to left, left to right on the A39, it just doesn't appear to be getting any closer until you're right up alongside it. We are approaching Glastonbury, and the first of today's ride title points of interest, Glastonbury Tour. So it's 518 feet above sea level, or in old money 158 metres, and I'll be skirting around it actually and then heading south, and then I'll be turning right southwestish down towards Taunton, following the Tone River down. Before we get to Taunton, there'll be the second of the day's points of interest, Burrow Mump. This is alongside the normally very busy A39. There's a real nice cycle path to sort of like, just very simple, good surface pavement alongside the main road. As you can see, the road's closed at the moment. They look like they're resurfacing it. Just leaving Glastonbury now, heading south, looking back towards Glastonbury Tour. See all the people like little specks on the slope leading up to the old church tower. You've got the River Brew in front of us. The River Burrow here, it's actually got this strange effect. It looks like it's flowing upstream because the wind, you'll see it's coming from the left, from the southwest. I'm going to be riding into that until halfway point at Taunton. So it's actually flowing that way, the river, although it doesn't appear to be, and it'll eventually flow into the Bristol Channel near Highbridge, a few miles that way. This way, that's upstream, that's heading towards its source on the Starrhead estate. In fact, I'll be passing nearby later this afternoon. Anyway, onwards this way, heading down, climb up on a ridge of hills, then the direction change, southwest is probably going to be a bit hard work next couple of hours because of this wind that's picking up. I've climbed up on this ridge, which I'm going to be on for a few miles, and I'm just passing Street Youth Hostel. Okay, it's old Swiss style chalet cabin style. I'm now at my second point of interest for today's ride, Burrow Mump. It's like a smaller version of Glastonbury Tor, a hill with an old church on top of it. This is 79 feet above sea level, or 24 metres in old money. At the information board there's actually quite a good map here, so you can see this is Burrow Mump. It's right on the outskirts of the village of Boroughbridge. It's where the River Parrot and the River Tone join. Talk more about that very shortly because there's somewhere else I wanted to share with you coming up. I've just taken a slight detour 100 yards or so off my main route to give you this side-on view of Burrow Mump. This is the old church. I'm now just a few hundred yards down from Boroughbridge and I'm at the Willow Craft Centre, and I saw a photograph from here about 2013 to 2014 I think. This area floods often. I'll explain why I think that is shortly, but I saw a picture of this place. I recognised it straight away, and the water was literally just up to the gutter there. You couldn't see the gutter, but you could sort of see the curved shape of the tiles. So there's my bike, so you can imagine that's three heights, 3.5 heights on my bike, completely flooded here. The photograph must have been taken by some sort of boat because they go around the local farms and houses making sure people are okay, maybe evacuating them as well. The reason I showed you that diagram of the two rivers conversion just up there, that's partially the reason it floods here. I think there's 3 rivers actually. There's the Burrow, the Parrot and the Tone, and all 3 of them flow off, not particularly high ground, but off hills, and then they do a long stretch across the Somerset levels where obviously they're not flowing very fast, and then they flow out into the Bristol Channel. And when there's heavy rainwater, those channels struggle to flow fast enough to get rid of that water. Combine that on an incoming spring tide in the winter, and quite often that just pushes all the backlog back, and there's nowhere for that water to go. It just spills over, and this area floods quite often. It's now 12:30. I'm sat in the park having my lunch in the middle of Taunton. I'm right next to the river, and I'm at the furthest point southwest of my ride, just under halfway actually, so it's a bit further on the way back. But it's been quite a strong headwind on the way down, so I hope it's going to be beneficial on the way back. Just coming into Taunton, the last, I don't know, 10-15 minutes, it became really quite cold. You may notice I put my windbreaker back on and my arm warmers back on, and there was a few drops of rain in the air. I have bought a Mac even though there's no rain forecast. Funny enough, there was no rain forecast yesterday. Me and Linda were going to have a barbecue, lovely in the morning. By 5 o'clock it's pouring down with rain, so we griddled them in the end. On the way back, as I said, I should have a tailwind. Talking about which, on my ride last week, when I turned left at Redhill, I was sort of saying it's a really long slog up to Goblin Combe and Bristol Airport. it's funny how you get this sort of narrative in your head, because I struggled to get up there once on an aqueducts ride when I was quite tired. And I thought, on a touring bike with all the kit, I'm probably going to have to get up and walk in places. It was a breeze. That's a bit pun intended. It was a breeze because I had a tailwind and I just got blown up there. It was so easy. It just shows sometimes you build this narrative and it was nothing like the previous time. So I'm half hoping it'll be easy this afternoon, especially the next coming point of interest, Alfred's Tower. There's one cracking hill leading up to it, and that's a bit of a brute actually, so it'd be quite nice if I got a tailwind assist up there. Talking about points of interest, at Burrow Mump I forgot to mention something I only found out yesterday when I was tapping around on the internet looking for some interesting facts to tell you. Burrow Mump, both words mean hill. I didn't know that. Bit like the River Avon, both words mean river. Maybe a little bit about what I eat on rides like this. So you can see I've got my snack bag on my top tube of my bike. During the first part of the ride, I eat a lot of fig rolls. They're these like 2 bite-sized biscuits like this. It's got the fig in the middle and then there's like a pastry around the outside. They were recommended by a dietitian on the British Cycling website. Really good for slow release carbohydrate. And I backed that up with rice cakes again. The same dietitian recommended these. These are Rice Krispies squares. They call them marshmallow, but it's just very sticky rice cakes. What I found is the first half of the ride, I find that okay. And then you just get this, some people call it flavour fatigue. I just go off carbohydrate altogether. Lunchtime onwards, I'll fancy savoury stuff. So for my lunch, I bought some ham baguettes down with some salad in. So again, carbohydrate, protein, some vegetables, vitamins. In the afternoon, I've been finding I get this craving for protein. I used to stop for beans on toast before COVID, but I very rarely go in cafes now, so I've started eating these protein bars. I find, for me personally, they really hit the spot in the afternoon. I got several different flavours. I buy them bulk off eBay, 20 at a time. I think they work out less than £1 each. Then later in the ride, if I'm sort of struggling a little bit towards the end, the last 15 miles say, not always, but sometimes I just feel I just need go back to sugar and sweet, just a chocolate energy boost. I would say probably less than 50% of the time that I need to do that. And with fluids, I start off with 2, I think they're 3/4 of a litre, 750ml, yeah. 2 of those size bottles with orange squash in, and I'll top those up with water during the ride, or I may even get flavoured water. Again, if I'm struggling with energy, if I need that sugar hit, I'll get a bottle of fizzy orange or mango, something like that. Occasionally Coca-Cola, the sort of stuff I would not fancy whatsoever at home, but as you know, when you're a bit depleted in energy, that just does the trick. It really hits the spot. And the other thing is, if I buy lunch from a supermarket or a shop when I'm out, I'll try and get a meal deal, and quite often they'll give me a pudding. You get some fruit, a fruit salad, or I'll maybe buy a piece of fruit like an apple and an orange, that sort of thing. So that's pretty much what I eat. When I get home, I always have a craving for something like lasagna or pasta. Quite often have a can of cold Guinness with that as well. That's probably what I'm going to have tonight when I get home. I've left Taunton now, only about a mile outside the outskirts. You can hear the M5 over to my right here, but I'm on this really nice quiet country lane. Wow, as I'm running along this minor road, I think I'm heading back towards Burrow Bridge, can't remember, but look at this suspension bridge. It's private, going over to, what's it called, Harbour House. I guess that's the River Tone. Talk about that for a driveway. There's the doorbell. That's pretty impressive, isn't it? The bridge was designed and built by the engineers of the Royal Marines, 1968. It was opened on May the 23rd by Lady Talbot, is that? Harbour Bridge was rebuilt. Wow. Oh right, Harbour Bridge was rebuilt by Mersey Engineering Construction Limited, Royal Engineer Reserves, in June 2019. As I said, rather than rushing along, just stop and have a look at things like this. Amazing what you see and find. Just gone 2 p.m. I'm stopped at Langport, so I'm on my way back. Distance wise I'm over halfway, but I've got a nice tailwind, so it seems like I'm being blown along. All well so far. I just stopped here for an ice cream actually. Maybe a bit more about what I eat on the ride. I will give myself treats. If I fancy something, I'll try and find it, whether that's an apple, a banana, an orange. Normally like something sort of thirst quenchy, and obviously on a warm day I find ice cream or ice lolly hits the spot. I really like these Clippos. In fact, I had a Coke one recently which I thought, oh, that's going to be disgusting, but that's all there was. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I actually prefer the Coke ones now to the orange. It's now 3 p.m. and I'm on the other side of Somerton, heading up towards Lydford-on-Foss, then along towards Castle Cary. So I've been on the road about 8 hours now, and I'm now on my protein bar. You can see it looks a bit a cross between a bar of nougat and an After 8, but it just really hits the spot. And while I was in Somerton, I stopped at a shop and got a bottle of Pepsi and a bottle of and a bar of really sweet chocolate for later on. So if I'm sort of saying I can't stomach the thought of sweet stuff, why would I have gone and bought that? Because I know later on I can easily flip back to that in the last hour or so of the ride. There won't be a lot of opportunities to buy food, so I've stocked up, and it won't go to waste. I'll just put it in the fridge when I get home, but it's definitely there as a backup if I need it. As I said before, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Mid-afternoon now, just coming through the sleepy village of Keaton Mandeville. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but it says on the boundary sign, home of blue lias. Whatever that means, I've no idea. I just noticed this blue plaque here actually, never spotted this before. I'm now at Lydford-on-Foss, and I've just literally come across that road. I've crossed the A37. You can see it's a quite busy Fossway. That was one of the highlights of my trip this year. It was really quiet. Just as it was getting dark, the traffic was virtually non-existent, and I was on a real high because I just knew I was going to get to my planned campsite for the evening, and it's just one of those memories that is very, very pleasant. You wouldn't think so by going by what it's like at the moment, but it maybe a couple of words about. Maybe now's a good time to give you a few words about my plans for next year. I always like a bit of a goal because it gives me something to aim for and start planning. So I do sort of enjoy the planning and preparation, and then the ride itself or the adventure itself. So recently on my Facebook memories came up this map of the Roman roads. It's done in the form of an underground tube map. I'd forgotten I'd posted it, to be honest, and it just made me think, I think I want to have a go at replicating another Roman road. Now, I've started researching it. I thought about Ermine Street or Watling Street, but they both look very, very busy on closer inspection. And then I started thinking, there's something else I want to do as well. I became aware of these First World War pillboxes over in the eastern side of the country. And I think there's a walk, which probably means you could ride it, which visits them all, I think in a day or a couple of days. That quite appeals to me. And then I suddenly thought the other day, why not try and combine them both? You don't have to do the whole of a Roman road, do you? Why not maybe try and ride a bit of one and incorporate into these pillboxes? So that's where my thinking is at the moment. I really am at the very, very early idea stage, so I don't know what's going to happen. But that's my thinking at this current moment in time anyway. It's now 4 p.m. I'm passing through lovely sandstony Castle Cary. Gem, this place. These wonderful buildings up the high street, and this gem behind me. And we're heading up that way into Tolkien terrain, I kid you not. And here we are in the fantastic Shire. This is the Brandybuck River. For some reason the Environment Agency insists on calling it the River Blue. That's Hobbiton. An Ordnance Survey and the local council insist on calling that the village of Cold in Somerset. This is a little bit of paradise. I've always fancied camping here. I don't think I'll get away with it in these fields. I even considered down there in a bivvy bag, but I just sort of think that would be a sea of midges and flies after dark. I love going down there though and looking back up. Look at this, absolute paradise. I absolutely love this place. And just around the corner on this minor road, this is the site of the old Somerset and Dorset Railway, and that's where the old coal viaduct would have been across the Brew Valley. It was sandstone in appearance, and it had to be demolished for safety reasons, I think in the 80s or 90s. I've just climbed up steeply from Cole along there. You join this road here, and there's this bridge. We're going this way up to White Champflower, and then over that hill down to Bruton, and then up the other side. But this is a bridge over the old Somerset and Dorset Railway, and it's summer so it's quite overgrown, but the owners have made this lovely wildlife pond down there. I can just see it, but you would have to know it's there. It'd be easy to miss this. It's beautiful that in the autumn or in the spring before the foliage, it's just lovely just sat there watching all the wildlife in this beautiful valley. Wow, you can probably tell I love this place. So climbing up towards Bruton, deepest, darkest Somerset, miles from the English Channel or the Bay of Biscay, yet you get this look here, drive on the left hand side, sort of thing you see outside Dover or outside Cherbourg. Puzzled me for years that, until just before the referendum, there was a business back there, big dairy, White Farm Dairy. They export cheese to the continent, and I think it must be Spanish and French drivers that maybe come over here and collect, as well as our drivers that deliver. That's the only thing I can think of. They were definitely on that programme. Nick Robinson interviewed both people for and against leaving, and these people obviously saw leaving as a threat. So that's, yeah, put two and two together. Maybe I've got it wrong, but that's the only explanation I can come up with. About a mile further on in Bruton, this sign always makes me laugh. Rome. I think it's supposed to be Froome. I climbed out of Bruton towards Wincanton. Part of the way up the hill, I turned left towards the Stourhead Estate, and now we're heading towards the third of today's ride title points of interest, Alfred's Tower. Look at that, perched up on top of the hill. Very gothic, haunting and daunting looking. If that's not Isengard, I don't know what it is. I'll tell you more about the tower when we get up there. It's quite a pull up the summit, I can show you. There's a male peacock just strolling up here. That's quite unusual. Just reminds me of a funny story. The first time I ever rode up here, I'd been down it several times, but I'd never ridden up here. And we were going so slow. There must be a farm up here on the left hand side, and a grey pig ran right in front of us across this road, feet from us, into this field on the right hand side. And we were going so slow, both of us stalled, and I remember having a job getting my foot back in the pedals to ride up to the summit. I always remember that and come down with great caution. Whoever I ride down with, I always warn them there could well be this pig going across. Here we are, top of the hill, bottom of the tower. Three-sided, it's hollow inside. There's a stairwell that goes all the way round to the top. You can get up there on Sundays, and I think possibly one day in the week as well. It's well worth going up there for the view. I did a wild camp down there a couple of years back, and after dark, well, just as it's getting dusk, this Stourhead Estate four-wheel drive came along, did a circle. My tent was round there. I was thinking, oh, here we go, they're going to tell me to get up and go. They didn't. They just drove by, gave me a wave, carried on back down there. I believe there's over 1 million bricks in that. There's an information board up there. I'll just go and confirm that when I get along there. Have a drink as well, get my breath back. And I do know there was a nearby airfield in the Second World War, maybe Henstridge, and I think it was an American aircraft just clipped in the top of that, and so the top few metres had to be rebuilt after the war. But it's a folly, not a tower, but it's well worth going in there. It's fantastic views. Here we are a bit further along the road at the information board. Oh yes, there was 1 million bricks in. 1.2 million bricks was used to build the tower. I won't go through it all, but it just basically says King Alfred's Tower, the ultimate status symbol. Henry Hoare II was a well-educated man who was passionate about history. He admired King Alfred the Great as a true English king who won a great victory over the Danes with a small army to keep England free. The battle took place in AD 878. King Alfred the Great raised his standard and rallied his troops near to where the tower stands. Delving deeper, in 1944 an American plane crashed into the tower. The top 10 metres had to be rebuilt. It's three-sided, so whichever side you look at it, it sort of looks quite different, to be honest, so it's well worth a good sort of gander round. Hope you're enjoying this little tour of Somerset and Wiltshire. What I always think is, why on earth go to all the expense and the trouble of going to Pisa when you can just come here and tilt the camera, look. It's gone 6 PM now. I really am dawdling on this ride. I'm going to run out of time if I'm not careful. Not that it is a timed event, but I do try and stick within the 14 hours. This is Sheerwater Lake on the Longleat estate. I've just left a massive Stourhead estate and it almost runs straight into the Longleat estate. So go along here. I seem to remember there's a bit of a zigzag at Crockerton, then I'll drop down to Warminster, Upton Scudamore, head across to Bradford-on-Avon for the 2 aqueducts. It's now 10 to 8 and I'm in the historic market town of Bradford-on-Avon. Well, in fact, I'm bypassing the town itself. I've got on the Kennet and Avon Canal. So this used to run between Newbury and Bath, and then it fed into the River Avon. I guess the main purpose of it was to get coal from South Wales, maybe up to London. It was the M4 of its day. Anyway, 2 aqueducts on the way back into Bath. Now, the first of the 2 aqueducts, so I've just come in that way from Bradford-on-Avon, and this is Cliff Aqueduct, very popular pub there, the Cross Guns. Nice little beer garden with a weir down there, so that's the River Avon, or should I say the River. A few facts and figures about this aqueduct, depending on which source you quote from. It either opened in 1801 or 1805, but you get the drift. It's 330 feet long, that's just over 100 metres, and 18 metres wide. Need to change towpaths here, so it means going under there, zooming under there, underneath there, up there, then along where that lady is. Then we're going to carry on round, turn left through the gorgeous Avon Valley towards Limply Stoke, then the second viaduct, Dundas. Just before I get up on the other towpath, that gives you a nice side-on view of it. Actually gives you an idea of the construction. Both this aqueduct, Cliff, and the next one, Dundas, were both built by the same engineer, John Rennie from Bath. Just before we leave this aqueduct, see there's a pillbox along there actually, but it also passes under the Bath to Weymouth Railway heading towards Bradford-on-Avon, and there's a station there, Cliff, very short platform. You got to request the train to stop there, I think, and also the guard will tell you which carriage you've got to be in, because it's only got the capacity for 1 carriage. I camped there once actually. I think I mentioned it before. I had a week off work, didn't quite know what to do with it. Last minute I got the train down to Emsworth and walked the Wayfarer's Walk up to, I think it finished at Inkpen Beacon, and walked across country and then got on the Kennet and Avon Canal near Croft Pumping Station, walked all the way back into Bath. Had me last night here actually. Come through all those woods, take a left hand turn, then all of a sudden there's the second of the 2 aqueducts. Again, got 2 towpaths on, one on either side. This one is 137 metres long. I guess it's about the same sort of width. That's looking towards Bath. That's looking up onto Claventry Down, the university's over there. I could follow this all the way back into Bath actually, but I actually live on a BA2 side, so what I can do here is, there used to be an old canal join here. It's called the Somerset Coal Canal. So I can turn left here, follow that down. When that canal went bankrupt, the Great Western Railway bought it up and built a railway on a lot of the old canal paths, and where the two merge, I'll actually follow that railway up to Monkton Combe School, cut through the school. It's the railway that's famous for the Titfield Thunderbolt, so you'll see loads of familiar places along there. Cut through Monkton Combe, turn left, down to Tucking Mill, then get on the Two Tunnels railway path back into Bath, and literally the two tunnels end about 2 or 3 minutes from my house. Another little interesting fact about this aqueduct, it's called Dundas because it was named after Charles Dundas, the first chairman of the Kennet and Avon Canal. So I've just got off the Somerset Coal Canal, which is just basically a mooring stretch of canal, and now I'm on the what's known as the Titfield Thunderbolt Railway. This is quite a famous scene, that bridge. It's where the coach was racing the train to the Board of Trade meeting. So I go along here, after about half a mile, just turn right and cut up through Monkton Combe School. You've got to walk up through there, you probably couldn't ride it anyway, it's so steep. Monkton Combe Church and Graveyard, there was the grave in there of the last surviving member from World War I, Harry Patch, local lad. A lady just showed me, just happened to strike up a conversation, said to me, did you want to go and have a look? And I sort of went, yeah, okay. I was just like taking some photographs of the church, and as we walked up, she showed me the grave quite close by of a Victoria Cross winner from the Parachute Regiment, I think from the Second World War. I'm not going to go and film it because I just don't think that's appropriate, but yeah, it's a lovely little place. Have a wander through there sometime. It's 8:45 and we're now on the track bed of the old Somerset and Dorset Railway between Midford and Bath. It's a greenway that's been opened to public use, and the two tunnels themselves were actually surfaced and lit and reopened to the public as part of this route. 2014, I think. This was said to be the longest tunnel in Britain without ventilation, and it's only single track, and it was a very tight bore apparently, and it was hellish going through there from what I've read and what I've heard. It's on quite a gradient, so one direction they were coasting downhill and the other direction they were pumping out lots of smoke and steam, working hard uphill. And quite often, because the trains were later on going to cross from Mendips, there was quite often two engines, so you can imagine it was like Dante's Inferno in there. And then you just get through this one, almost get your breath back, and then there's a second one, a shorter one. So this one's going under Combe Down. It'll bring you out in Lincoln Vale. It's just over a mile long. Bring you out in Lincoln Vale for about half a mile, and then you go through Devonshire Tunnel, which is much shorter, and that goes underneath Bloomfield. So I pass through Combe Down Tunnel. I'm at the other end of Lincoln Vale. I'm just about to pass through the shorter Devonshire Tunnel. So I'll finish the film off when I get home. See you there. I'm now home, and this is my post-ride meal. So I've got a lasagna, got plenty of the salad left from yesterday's barbecue, and some cold Guinness that's been in the fridge overnight. I hope you've found it interesting what I've been eating on a ride like today. I never ever really struggled on today's ride. Having said that, I got home at 9 PM, which has taken 14 hours to ride a 200, which means if it had been an official validated ride, I'd have been very close to the time cut off, which would have been something like 14 hours and 12 minutes. So I would have barely scraped in. But as I said this morning, I don't really ride most of my rides now as official rides. I base them on DIY Audaxes, but I don't ride them strictly to the letter. I don't enter them officially. For instance, recently I did a 200 and I was coming back, and to just avoid a bit of main road, I just hit it at rush hour. I detoured around some lanes that I knew. When I come home and put the ride into the computer, it was 199.94 kilometres. Before, I'd have literally just put the computer back on the bike, ridden around the block a couple of times, come back and stitch that file together to be over the 200 kilometre. But this time I just didn't care whatsoever. As I said earlier on, I'm just treating them as tourist events now. Anyway, I'm going to tuck into this, put my ride on the computer. I always love seeing the route appear on Strava. I never tire of that. I guess it's what photographers must have felt like when they saw their pictures developing, all the fixing fluids in the old days. I get the same sort of thrill from that. Anyway, it's been quite a long video, this one. If you've got this far, thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.